talk show with published authors, writers, and content creators discussing both the creative and technical sides of writing, as well as the industry surrounding it, from novels to screenplays to comics and more. And now, here's your host, author Travis I. Sivart.
Thank you, Cogsy. Always a delight to hear him chatting. Okay, welcome to Saturday Write Night. It is April 11th. Tonight's topics for the creative hour will be writing, prompts, writing. And for the technical hour, social media skills. I'll go through the concepts in a moment, but first, let's introduce everybody around, and I'll end with myself. So just above me here, there's Aaron Kennedy.
Hi, I'm Aaron Kennedy. I'm the owner of Valor Books and Clouder Consulting. I've been published in the Army Times and the Military Times. Also published the book Persona Non Grata, space adventure with a little bit of pulp in it. Been a technical writer for about 25 years in addition to that.
And in the center of the screen, our guest for the evening, Elizabeth the Pickle Lady.
Well, hello, good evening, everyone. It's Elizabeth Pashetsny here, otherwise known as Pickle Lady. I am a screenwriter and filmmaker, head and pickle wrangler, head of Pickleman Productions, known for its zombie pickles from space and Dillzilla, Titan of Terror. Check us out on Twitter and on our website, picklemanproductions.com. And remember, anything starring Pickleman is kosher for all ages.
Hey.
Very true. And then in the upper right over there, we have Michael Thompson.
Hey everyone, how you doing? My name is Michael Thompson. I'm an author and illustrator. I write fantasy novels and superhero books for kids. And this is the latest superhero book. This is Chicken Boy and the Might of the Monkey Man. Action, adventure, monkeys, lots of fun.
And then directly across from me over there, we have Tempe Wade.
Hi, I'm Tempe Wade. I'm the author of the Timely Revolution book series. It's a time travel adventure series based, of course, during the Revolutionary War. I'm also working on some romance and some fantasy novels in addition to that while I'm still writing this series. So check it out.
And I am Travis Sivart. I'm your host. I have published a book just a couple days ago. It's under my pen name Joe Wilson, and that's My Puppy is a Werewolf, and that should be available for sale. If it's not already, then very soon. And I'll get a link for everybody for that next week. I do want to let everybody know, if you're watching this live and you miss any little bit, don't forget you can find us on all kinds of streaming services. You can find them just below the screen on Twitch, but it's all the big ones. You got Google Play and iHeartRadio and so on and so on and so on. Now, the other bit of my introduction I wanted to do, and Tempe, your fans are shouting your name.
Oh, hi everybody! I don't read the comments so much because it tends to blow my computer up. So, just hi.
Now, before I get into this, I also want to ask any of our viewers, what are you guys reading? Or if you're not reading something, what are you writing? Let everybody know in the chat. Let us see that. Hey, there's Chris throwing his bits at our face.
Carvilon Sheared, X100.
And also, anybody watching this on one of the podcasts, keep in mind that you can find us live on twitch.tv/Travis Tavern Talk every Saturday night at 8 p.m. There's Spacey Tracy. Hello to you. Good to see you.
Hi, Tracy.
So, another thing I had that was fun to happen this week is about a week ago, about 6 days ago, I guess, I reached out to a literary agency to see about getting a agent. I totally filed this way. Hold on, I gotta go find the letter. And she responded last night. I didn't even think to leave it up to read it to you guys. There it goes. Okay. And this was her response. Hold on, my internet's being slow. There we go. Okay. Dear Travis, thank you for your query and your interest in the Night Agency. Silver and Smith and the Jazir's Light, that's the name of the book that I sent the query about. Sounds like an interesting story, and I would love to see some more. Please send the first 100 pages and a brief synopsis. You'll find information on how to upload below. I look forward to reading further.
All right.
Oh, rock on.
Nice.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Yes.
And that's what I actually did on air earlier before the show here. As I went and researched last night while playing Fortnite with Elizabeth, researched how to make a submission, which is basically tell them where Act 1 inciting incident is, how it ends, basically your plot line, this thing that we talk about, which a lot of newer authors go, I don't need all that shit. Okay, pacing is important to anything that you actually want to sell to somebody else besides an individual. Pacing is very important in the bigger picture for the wider audience. Well, thank you, Princess Shira, and everybody else. But yeah, I wrote up a quick synopsis, and then here's a fun fact. If you are in the publishing industry, and I complained a little bit about this last week, don't tell people how many pages. I have a 60,000 word book there. I formatted it in a 5x8 to self-publish. If I go and put it in an 8.5 by 11 word doc, single spacing, it is now 91 pages, as opposed to 210.
Right.
Now, I understand where you're coming from, Travis, but kind of the industry standard has been 250 words per page, so she's asking for 25,000 words.
Really?
Yes.
No, she said 100 pages.
I understand what she said.
That is not what she's asking. She's asking for what she asked for, not for what theoretically. We
and that's why I disagree with you on this, because you go back there and you take a look at it.
We discussed 2 weeks ago standards. And people tell you what standards they expect. There is no industry standard. We discussed that. Everybody
and
has
I disagree. Right, but the 250 words per page is kind of the running standard. It's not exact. Nothing is exact in this thing, but she's asking for 25,000 words.
No. Yes, Elizabeth.
I'd like to chime in here.
Please.
Please.
Now, just to remind our viewers, I don't write novels. I write screenplays. Generally, I agree with Travis, and it's really smart to look up. Like, if they ask me for a synopsis or a treatment, I'm going to look up and just to remember exactly what they mean, and maybe even confirm with them. But where was I saying? They're going to put me through the ringer. If they ask me for an outline, they may just say, and I don't like this. Make it a comedy. And can you do that? And I say, all right. And I get back to them in a few days. Now my outline's a comedy. And they say, no, it's not working for me. Make it a thriller. Then I got to make it. So I would say for Travis, I'm excited for you. And I would go in with that attitude. Like, okay, they're going to put me through the ringer. Maybe they're going to push some buttons and just see what happens.
I've had
Go
friends. I've heard that. I've heard that as well. I've had them ask them to change the point of view, to change like whether it's first or third person, and to change the genre, like you said. And it was like years of work for this one author I know, and then it didn't end up getting made. And
Oh, ouch.
yeah,
Well, I was talking about something like when we do outlines and synopsis, it's just a few days. Like, just fix it. But, they might just be testing to see if you're going to get worked up about something. Because if they're going to work with you, they may work with you for a long time, and they want to see if you're worth the investment.
right.
Well, Kathleen Kennedy's got the no assholes rule. She doesn't work with assholes.
Yeah. But what if you are an asshole?
Then she doesn't work with you the second time.
She worked with herself, though.
So what I did with this, guys, is I basically sent a separate note going exactly what I just said. I changed the formatting to a standard 8.5 by 11
Yeah.
single spacing and sent it to you that way with Calibri font, which is an industry standard. If this is not what you want, let me know if you want any changes.
Yes!
I'll make those changes. So I didn't say you need to tell me a word count. But Aaron, again, depending which style they guide, and I scoured their website looking if they have a style guide they use, if they have always use double spacing, this size. Nothing on their website.
Oh, no, but I mean, the big six, have the 250 thing, and it was on their style guides for years. Then it became the big five and
This
kind of
is
four and a
not the
half.
Big Six. This is an agency.
Right, but the big six is where they get their stuff from. Friggin', they're a secondary market on that.
You can't assume that.
Yeah, especially with the agents, because every agent is completely different. Most of them will post, they'll have a website somewhere or on their literary agency website. They'll tell you how they want it. They'll tell you, exactly how many pages, how it's formatted,
Yeah,
or whatever.
the Big
And
Five
some
do
of them
that.
give you nothing. Yeah, some of them give you nothing. It's just like they throw out a wish list of ridiculous concepts, and that's all they give you. And it's like, okay. And then they'll read the query letter, and they might not even read what you send. If there's something in the tone of your query letter they don't like, they'll kick it out and won't even bother to read what you've sent in.
Well, they're gatekeepers.
Yes. But it's it's a little difficult. You can't read everybody's mind. So.
But this discussion here, with all these different opinions, and we have each added different things into it, is my point of why, if you are in the industry, please let people know what you're expecting when they say something.
Oh, that's reasonable.
Because we're all going to think different things. 5 of us said 5 different things here. Some of it paralleled or coincided, other went head on against each other. And this is the confusion you create for somebody where you might be getting a great product, but because they don't do it how you want it, because they didn't know any better, they're sent out the door, and you potentially lose a great product to sell.
Well, congratulations.
Well, thank you,
Travis.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It's real cool, and I'm so stoked to hear how it goes for you, and you'll exist in both worlds now.
We'll see. It's still in the gray phase, and even if they totally accept it, I have heard enough stories of both sides to go in with my eyes open and a little caution in my step.
Hey, they're talking to you.
Yes.
Which is a huge step forward. And that's what we always say. Even if it's little steps, just keep moving forward.
Very cool.
And the backup plan is I have it formatted at 8.5 by 5. I could just, in minutes, have it published on Amazon if they say no, or else if they hit a point like Michael just mentioned or Tempe just mentioned where I'm like, oh, this is a lot of flaming hoops to jump through, and they coated them in poop, yeah, it might be a contraceptive, but I don't want it on me. Yeah, fun
they
fact.
missed that earlier conversation.
Yeah, that was the
Pre-show
sound
fact.
check conversation.
No, leave it without context.
Okay, so the creative hour, we've taken enough time up on that, but there's a little thing. Let us also know, guys, what you're reading, what you're writing, or something along that. Drop it right in chat so you guys can discuss with each other. We might not go into on air, but we'd love to hear it and see it. So, the opening topic is writing prompts writing. Now this, in my head, and then I'll throw it out there and let you guys chew it over and toss it back and forth, is writing prompts, prompt writing. Okay? I also like to think of a writing prompt as a directional sign. Go that way. As opposed to a detailed list of instructions. It's just a generalized head in that direction. And then I'll give more opinions on writing prompts and how I use them without ever looking one up online, which is what I don't want the whole show to be about. Go Google it. I want it to be us as published, experienced authors putting insight behind writing prompts and the logic behind them and how to make them for yourself. Who's got some thoughts?
I'll toss one out there. Friggin', and I did this on one of my social media things, so it'll probably come back here. The title of the article that I did is physical fitness overemphasized in the Army? And it was a question that actually popped out on one of my social sites, which was Rally Point, a military related site. And I basically just asked the question, hey, do we overvalue this in the military? Which prompted a kind of a discussion. And then I'm like, shoot, okay, well, you know what? I put in my own thoughts, and I got responded to by my co-author, a guy named Yeager, Major Yeager. And we developed an article, probably about 25 pages or so, which was in turn trimmed down to about 3 pages.
He's that
So we had about
250 words per page?
that is. We went from about 10,000 words down to about 750 to call it 1,200 because the editor inserted some things
That's a
and
huge
we
cut.
adjusted.
As they do.
Oh no, and the response we got when we submitted it was, "Hey, wow, this is an amazingly well researched article. However, it's just outside of our scope. We don't do anything this big. Can you trim it? Can you give us a gist and make it an opinion piece?" So we did, and we trimmed it down. We freaking footnoted some of the things that we had to explicitly line out, but we reserved the right to publish it again elsewhere in its full form or in other variations of it.
Nice.
That in turn led to the second article I got published was sleep deprivation. As me and my writing partner were talking about it, he mentioned, I'm like, oh, well, shoot. He gave me kind of an outline of what he was looking at. I was like, okay, well, have you considered this? Which was the parallels between sleep deprivation and inebriation, the abuse of a controlled substance, if you will. And he's like, oh, wow, I hadn't done that. And that merged the concepts together, and it became one writing prompt, which he had kind of provided to prompting the writing on the other side. And then that's led to other articles that are in the not published stage, but are out there. And I'm probably going to pop them up on my own website eventually as part of blog posts and things like that.
Who else has some thoughts on it?
I don't use writing prompts. I'm a very much fly by the seat of my pants kind of writer. I just sit down and start typing, and whatever comes, that's what I put down, and that's just what I go with. I don't use outlines.
You don't have an
use
idea
anything.
before you start writing?
Normally, no. I just start
didn't
and
have
then
any-
I go wherever it goes.
You didn't have an idea of a time traveling heroine who goes past and meets George Washington?
Not initially in the beginning. No, George Washington wasn't even in the scope when I started writing that. So
Does the dialogue come through more often, or the imagery for you?
imagery,
Imagery.
definitely,
Okay.
yes, and then the dialogue follows.
And dialogue are like in the moment.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. But I don't use prompts. I don't use outlines. I don't. The closest I've ever come to that is I did put a question out on Instagram because I was working on a piece, and it was pretty violent. It's not something that I finished or anything. And I had I asked some of the people on Instagram, I'm like, how do you feel about this? Because it was a pretty violent rape scene, and they gave me some feedback, and I was surprised that I didn't get more pushback on that. The general consensus was, if you warn me ahead of time to let me know it's there, we're good with it. So, it's everybody's got a different way of doing things. So,
Now, do you think that had kind of the women in fridges thing going on as there as well, where as a woman author, you don't get as much pushback on that? Because if Travis, me, or Michael were, not that Michael would in his books, because that would make Chicken Boy a hell of a lot more interesting.
yeah. And I that you may have a point there. I'm not sure, but that was the group that I was worried about, because I didn't want to do because people are touchy nowadays about a lot of things. Not to say that they shouldn't be on situations like that, but it happened, especially when you're writing historical stuff. It happened, and yeah, go ahead, Travis.
I'd like to chime in. I had a similar question I put up on Facebook in 2016 when I was still working on Facebook regarding my medieval fantasy Harbinger, because there is a similar scene, and I asked about that, and it was generally about the same feeling. Now, in the past 4 years, the social climate has changed drastically. So perhaps if I put it up now, there'd be different kickback. But the fun fact of social media is like attracts like, and the people who are following you are not looking to alienate or ostracize you by attacking your concepts. Most of them just don't respond to that, the stuff that would become argumentative.
Right.
Most of them. Some will definitely shout and wave a flag.
Well, I mean, and the ones I got responses from were people that I didn't know. They were just people I had, friended on Instagram or whatever.
Good.
So they they didn't know me from Adam. They don't know anything about me. I just threw the question out there. And the way I worded it was, hey, if you know it's coming, does it bother you? Do these scenes bother you? Because when you're writing, like I said, when you're writing historical stuff, that stuff happened. And I did add it with the caveat, if the person who did it really, really gets it in the end, let's just make that very clear that would happen.
Right.
But
Comforting.
Yeah.
No.
So, Michael or Elizabeth, any thoughts on writing prompts?
I think for me, it's my prompts are kind of like whatever comes to me first, kind of like what you were saying in sound check, Travis. But it's usually like for Winslow, it's usually one line, and similar to Tempe, the imagery is what comes through more often. But when lines do come through, it's usually like one line, and so that's like the nucleus of the story, and then from that it like blooms or germinates outward, and I try to answer questions around that to build into what will be the full story. I ask myself, who's saying this? Why are they saying this? And then your writer's mind will then build it outward. It's like starting a puzzle from the middle. And then like for in Winslow, in The Trouble with Mermaids, which is chapter 2, which is probably one of my favorite chapters. The first line that came through, I was in the shower when I got this line, and it was a conversation between Winslow and the bar owner Keeley, and it was Keeley's line, who was saying, "Come now, friend, do you honestly expect us to believe some pretty mermaid had the hots for you?" And then Winslow snaps, "I never said she was pretty. We're talking about a flippin' fish girl, Keel. She was scaly head to fin. Her hair was like seaweed." And I was like, and I just started busting a gut. I was like, what led up to this, and what's the full story? And then for World of the Orb, there's a lot more imagery, so it's like these cinematic moments, like the big death snake chase in the middle of World of the Orb. That was the first image I ever got of World of the Orb, and I mentioned this a few episodes ago. But like asking myself those writery questions of how did these people get here is a great way for me to fill out the story.
Yeah, I'm like you, Mike. I like have complete conversations with myself in the shower, just like dialogue out loud, and I'm like, I hope nobody walks in because they're gonna think I'm crazy.
Is that related to the writing or no?
What was that?
About half and half.
Was that related to the writing or not? Is the question.
About half and half.
Tempe, and that's the kind of stuff that I'm saying that's a writing prompt. Just because it's not written down, it's the nucleus, it's the seed that you build on, that it comes out of. And this is what I want viewers to understand. However you get your story to germinate, that is your writing prompt. It doesn't have to be words on a page. It could be a conversation with yourself in the shower. It could be a mental picture that you then paint in words.
Yeah.
Elizabeth,
Yeah,
do you have some thoughts on writing prompts?
Sure. When I'm writing for my... No, I'm done. Giggle. When I'm writing for myself, I agree. Just for fun. We all do this. There's a visual, a moment, like a scene, this shot, like, oh my God, and everything's... Okay, I have those. But...
That's the cat, not me. The cat sat on the bell. Sorry.
I was going to say, that's son of a bitch. Every time I start talking, that bell rings. I digress. I've kind of been working on a different angle and working with a group, and we're starting writing screenplays from kind of the producer's point of view from the get-go to where we absolutely take their considerations in at first. And so that's what's keeping me low budget. That's what's keeping me without special effects. I've even currently writing something without a monster, without a creature. It's painful, but I'm doing it. Okay. But like what Michael was saying, I start with a log line with a sentence or a couple sentences, very short and sweet. I guess you'd call it an elevator pitch. Boom. That would tell the entire script in a film in the producer's head. And then I work on, we kind of call it a query letter, something I'd send out to producers that would tell the entire movie in just very, very short paragraphs, like half a page. Boom. And then I start working on the outline and getting it structured and characters. And like you said, build out, build out, build out.
Yeah.
And I want to tell all the writers out there, I know all the writers here now, but first draft is always the vomit draft. But you can't make something pretty until you get it on paper. So get it out there. Even when it's painful, like, no, I don't like this scene. Keep writing, keep writing. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
What?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I didn't hear. Someone said something I didn't hear.
I think
I was
Travis
giggling.
started.
Just passing over to Travis. You know,
Okay. By the way, I think it was Michael said starting a puzzle from the middle was something you just said. Keep in mind, if you're a pantser, you're starting the puzzle in the middle. If you're a plotter, you might be starting with those corner pieces and building your structure around it and then filling in the center. And there's not a wrong way to do it. The bottom line is, as Elizabeth just said, your initial draft is your worst draft. It only gets better after that, and that's where you clean it up and polish it up and check for all the stuff. So, all I want to say about writing prompts, well, besides everything else I say after this moment, is writing prompts are an idea put into words. And you can take somebody else's writing prompt, which you Google, or somebody says, or you're doing a writing exercise, whatever, and definitely build on that. But for me, I use writing prompts when I come up with that one idea, the one mental image, the one conversation in the shower, and I'm like, oh, I've got to
Inspiration
remember.
seed.
Right. Got to remember this.
Yeah.
I go write it down.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a lot of times, for me to get a full novel, it takes 3 to 5 of those. And it might be 1 to 3 sentences. It might be a whole page that I just transcribed later. But usually, it's just a couple sentences, 3 to 5 sentences. And now I have enough. It's the seed of a novel.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that concept works really good, especially when we got friggin' Elizabeth here. Friggin', you're talking about if you got 3 of those prompts, you got your A story, your B story, a little subplot going on, and they can all friggin' kind of work together to create those 3 big scenes, or their interlaced scenes and everything.
Quite often, it's more like a primary idea, not necessarily a B plot, but a secondary idea to support it and fill in the primary, and then some totally separate, unrelated scene that I'm like, I could take these and work it towards that. But the way you're describing is absolutely valid too, depending who you are and how your head works.
Oh yeah.
Now, once I have the concept of how the book works, and I was thinking about this as you guys were talking, I don't think I ever know the ending of my books. I know where Act 3 starts, but I never know where the book actually ends. I know where they want to go once Act 3 is beginning.
Yeah.
And I know they're broken at that point in time, or at the biggest point of challenge, or whatever. But I never, like Silver and Smith, that's with the agent right now, I didn't realize the ending was going to be what it is, and I was very pleasantly surprised because it opened up a lot of shit for the next books.
Well, I mean, that goes back to Soundcheck when we were talking about the Kevin Smith movies and things like that, where he's got Tusk, but I brought up Red State. Red State's probably his darkest, realist of his stuff, because we're existing in a real universe instead of a cartoonalized universe that Jay and Silent Bob exist in, that Tusk, where somebody gets kidnapped and turned into a walrus, exists in. This is a realish world, and he says when he started writing it, anytime he thought he knew where it was going at the end, he'd switch scenes, switch perspectives, so that he didn't know and the audience didn't know either. Because you want the tropes and the tricks and the plots to be surprising for the people that are actually reading it. Because why should I watch The Matrix? It's just Star Wars. Why should I watch Star Wars? It's just a Western, and so on and so forth. You kind of know where it's going, but how did they get there is really what makes it fun.
Amen. Amen. And a little more succinctly, but I totally want to agree with you, Aaron. Because my first I first studied animation, and I had an instructor tell us, You getting on an elevator is going to be very different than Buster Keaton or Charlie Chaplin getting on an elevator. And it's really in the how and why. And absolutely. We could all do exactly the same structure and it'll be completely different. So
This is why
absolutely.
when people bitch about the movie Avatar, James Cameron Avatar, they're like, "Oh, it's just Dance with the Wolves." I've seen that story. I'm like, "Yeah, but it's how he does the story that's beautiful." Even
It's
though
much
For me,
closer
it
to
was like,
Ferngully.
why?
huh?
It's much closer to Ferngully and friggin' Gulliver, or not Gulliver, Gargamel with the Smurfs.
And what do you say, Elizabeth?
For me, it's more like, why? Why do people like this so much?
It's Stranger in a Strange Land.
Ferngully was better. I agree, Aaron.
I'm
Sorry.
pointing out it's a story that made millions upon millions of dollars.
Absolutely.
Oh,
absolutely.
So there was some attraction to it, even though it's a reheated meatloaf of a concept. He put some pretty parsley on that thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, don't get me wrong, and I've commented about this before. Where, hey, the Lion King is Hamlet. Friggin' Bug's Life is Seven Samurai. Um, they're reheated. They're not new concepts. They're the same story retold in a different way, which is really cool. And I love adaptations. I mean, I absolutely love seeing a new version of Tarzan come out. I'm like, oh, what do we got this time? Um, or it, Teen Wolf. Teen Wolf was completely changed. Going back to Elizabeth's point of, hey, here's your first script. Hey, I want to make Teen Wolf. Okay, but can we make it darker? Can we make it more friggin' teenage charged? Can it be something completely different than the old campy friggin' 80s, 80s and 90s movies with Michael J. Fox and Jason Bateman?
And I really think they should have said, no, we can't.
But it sells millions and millions of dollars of advertising.
2 seasons, really? Come on. No, it's actually I don't know how many seasons it went. I just know I'm out of that age range. And that
Yeah.
It's has anybody actually seen it? The Teen Wolf TV series?
No.
Oh God, no.
No.
Okay,
Emphatic
I
no.
think my point is made. Let me go back to what I was saying about writing books. One of my biggest problems is when I start a new chapter, especially when I have this concept of the high points or the low points in a story. So maybe I have 5 points in the story that I know I want to see.
6 seasons, by the way.
Really?
Yeah.
It's were the actors' parents just paying for it to keep happening? Anyhow, I'm sure somebody loves it. I'm sure it's a great series to somebody that just watches Netflix and nothing else. Never leaves the house. Oh my God, it's a quarantine.
We're all watching Netflix now. There's nothing else to watch.
Tonight
To be
we'll all be
fair,
watching Teen Wolf.
Last night I saw like the Return to Jersey Shore.
Oh,
I wasn't watching it. It was at the jail, and the inmate workers were watching, and I'm like, this shit's gonna rot your brain.
are you
Wait.
torturing the inmates now?
Huh?
Are you torturing the inmates now?
I didn't pick it. They did.
Tempe, if you need anything really of significance, spiritually uplifting, and joyful to watch, come watch me on Twitch TV at Pickle Lady.
I did
See
see you. I did see you this week on Twitch TV.
Follow the
I'm come watch a pickle play ukulele.
You forget I sleep till like 1 now.
We don't start till 3. And
Hey.
we're on YouTube. Anyways,
I think we broke Travis.
So, I feel like I'm backpedaling now. It feels weak to go back, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm just going to complain for a second before I do. So when I start a chapter, I quite often have no idea how to start a chapter.
Mm-hmm.
I have the one objective or scene in my head for that chapter that I'm like, this is... And sometimes I don't even have that. So a lot of times what I do is I pick one sentence to start a chapter with. It's just something interesting that catches my attention as a writer, because something I've often said, if I'm bored with writing a scene, perhaps Kevin Smith was working with this in Red State, if I'm bored writing a scene, my reader's probably going to be bored reading it. So I need to change it up, switch to a different scene, especially if the reader knows where that scene is going anyway. Why bother finishing it? They know where it's going. I can come back and in one sentence go, yep, that happened.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, to that point, friggin' Jim Butcher, the guy who wrote the Dresden novels, he talks about this. There's three ways to end a scene. The protagonist or whoever's in charge accomplishes what they want to accomplish. They don't accomplish what they want to accomplish, or one of the two, but not in the way that it was expected.
Right.
He always aims for number three. You want to have a twist or a cliffhanger or something to lead you from that scene to the next scene and so forth.
Right.
Yeah.
But going back to how to start a chapter as opposed to how to end it.
Start with the last chapter you finished.
There we go.
Nice.
Oh, okay.
That's how it's done.
What is today? But yesterday is tomorrow.
No. And me and Travis have had this discussion before where don't conclude things, cut it off halfway. And then you do a transition in the middle of the thing. So rather than I'm going from chapter 1, I only make it to chapter 0.5, and then I'm 0.5 to 1.5, so that, yeah, there's a transition point in there because, you leave it on a cliffhanger so they want to read the next chapter. You resolve that and in the opening scenes of that chapter, and then you move on to the other one where they've got to resolve it in the chapter that follows that. Keep them reading. Don't let them set your book down. If you look at the James Bond films, these are absolutely great in that regard because they always lead with the end of his last adventure, and you're seeing the resolution of that, and that leads you into the next adventure at the very beginning of Act 1.
Right.
I don't put chapter breaks in as I write. I just write the whole thing and then I go back and cut them in later.
Oh, that's interesting.
And I've even had Tara, when she was editing, go, "Yeah, I think you should add a chapter in here. Break it up right here." When I write, I just completely write, and I just continue, and then I add them in later and go figure out where to put them. Don't always put them in the right places. I'm still learning, like everybody else. But yeah, that's the way I handle those.
Well, that's what I did with Persona non grata. Friggin' it started off as like 12 chapters.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, no, these are way too long because they were like 30 pages each. I'm like, okay, let's break them up into scenes in there. And then I was like, I don't like the way these are resolving. So I sidestepped them a little bit. Just enough to kind of finish on okay, what's happening next?
Perfect. Yeah. Good.
Another way to do it is when I mentioned if I get bored with a scene, that's a great place to cut it off because it hasn't resolved. It does make people turn the next page. They're expecting something else, and then you switch to a completely different scene. And with a different character or your antagonist instead of the protagonist or whatever else you're... Elizabeth?
In film, we call that you start late and you leave early when you write a scene. So you don't want to go through all the independent films. A lot of walking to things scenes. Start late, end early.
You gotta work that down.
Well, what was it?
Get the hell out of that scene.
Kevin Smith, when he first met friggin' Bruce Willis on like Die Hard 5 or something like that, something that Bruce Willis did, and Kevin Smith relays the story. Bruce Willis would read this script, and he'd have the stack of 120 pages or something, and he'd go, scene, chuffa, and he just ripped pages out. And he's like, why are you doing that? Look, we'll film it, and then they're going to cut it in the editing room floor because it's not good. Why do I bother filming it? And it's like, you got the actor who's kind of responsible for the property just doing in advance editing, saving money and all that.
He's probably the producer, too.
Oh, yeah.
So he knows what he's going to throw away anyway because he's telling the editor, get rid of that shit.
Yeah.
Have you
But
guys
aren't we
ever...
our own producers?
Until somebody else pays for it. You guys ever watch one of those scenes in any movie, TV show, or even read in a book, and the scene ends, and it ends at the end of the scene as opposed to leaving early, and you're like, I imagine if I was in that situation in real life, that would have been so awkward to leave the conversation when it stops there. You'd just be like,
Yes.
And then Grandpa revealed that he was a whatever. Yeah, I'm gonna go. Talk to you. Message me on Facebook. Yeah, yeah. I'll catch you later, guy. Yeah, it
I
just
think a lot of times it's really bad writing. I agree with you, Travis, that conversations just end. And I was talking about a show that's on Netflix right now, written by someone very popular's son. And every scene when it gets uncomfortable is ends with a phone call interrupting or someone knocking on the door, and then they have to end the conversation, and that's not interesting. In life, people don't really tell you what they're thinking or they're feeling, and it's like pulling teeth trying to get people to talk to you. So they're going to do everything they can to not talk to you, this and that, and that's what's interesting, and that's good writing, and that's, I think, what we yearn for.
it's what you can relate to best.
Oh God.
Well, and on your point, take a look at like the reality TV shows where they do the confessionals. They actually do a really good job of cutting things, and then we get that background information, the old editor's notes and stuff like that. Because they do say these are scripted, because they've been freaking cut around and played around with.
No, it's reality. It's
Yeah,
totally
yeah, sure it is.
Do they actually say it's scripted now?
Oh yeah, written by such and such, or script by.
Oh.
But I mean, there's little pieces and stuff like that. It's not as bad on like your Survivors or things like that. But some
I've
of the
actively avoided reality TV since the first reality TV show I remember, which is Cops, from the late '80s, still on the Fox network back then, before Fox had news.
it had nothing on Chips, man. Chips was so much better than Cops.
But anyhow, one great opener is in Silver and Smith. There's one time in the middle I switched scenes away from one character to another, and I'm like, how do I open this scene? Because I left it with him being resistant to the questions of this person in the room with him, and I opened that next scene with, and the wig came off. And I'm like, you know what? I'm very happy with that one sentence, because no matter what comes next, it's already interesting to me.
Yeah.
You know, and the wig came off. What the hell does that mean? What happened? Because in the previous scene with this character, he looked at one person and went, they're very stony-faced. It's a woman. And the hair is cut crooked, which told him, that's a wig. She's wearing a wig. And she's also a bodyguard of the other person asking the questions that he doesn't want to answer. So starting that next thing with, and the wig came off.
Yeah, I like it.
I was very pleased. And that's something I think as a writing prompt, to make something that makes you go, oh, I'm interested now. And I'm the writer.
That's good.
Yeah, I think
Winslow.
Thank you. So sorry. That's why I paused, because I'm like, wait a minute. That's not it.
Oh, good.
I need a copy of that, by the way, so I can have it over here.
Audiobook's coming out soon.
You know what? I think I want a paper copy so I can read it. I think. Wait, who's doing the voices? Okay. Audiobook too then.
Yeah. Coming out real soon.
Anyhow, so yeah, I think laying down something that you as a writer in the beginning of a chapter, a book, a scene, whatever, interests you and captures your imagination. I think that's the core of capturing a reader or a listener or a viewer.
Yeah. I think because, we are our first readers, and it's a matter of like how do we sell this to ourselves? And like when I'm writing fantasy, it's how do I make the unbelievable believable? How do I get hooked into this, and how do I forget that this is all make believe? How do you believe that magic is real?
That might be
Willful suspension of disbelief.
Yeah.
That might be why Michael is better at selling his work than I am at selling mine. He's more excited about it. Because I find with these newer books that I'm writing, where I'm doing these things, I am more happy to talk about it and more interested in it myself. I'm more invested in my own characters. So it's easier for me to go to people and go, oh, then there's this thing.
Yeah.
So this might be a big clue for any writer having a problem selling your work just by talking about it. Not necessarily selling, just capturing somebody else's imagination with your work. Maybe it's not tickling your own imagination enough. You're not delighted enough to push it like a crack rock on the person that walks by.
It's true. You're asking people to spend money and time from their life, from their precious life, on your work, and they're not going to get excited about it if you're not. You know, there's why should I? Why should I? You know, and it's okay.
It goes back to that the points we've made about this is an investment, and if you were trying to convince somebody to invest in anything, the cool new thing, what kind of passion do you have behind that investment? If I was trying to convince, oh, you got to friggin' invest in Apple, it's the greatest and the best and greatest because of this, and this. You don't friggin' relay stats and stuff like that. You tell them a story, why it's cool or how
you
it's
twist
cool.
the stem off and you do the ABCs, and that's who you're going to marry.
Oh, friggin' one of them fell on Isaac Newton and all that stuff. Hey, did you know he was celibate? And if I was a time traveler, I'd go back and change that.
No means no, Aaron.
Oh, no. I didn't say I would.
Well, I guess when that's not on your brain, you have room for other things.
Hey, look, Tempe, I just gave you your next book series. You're welcome.
The apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
Oh, that's a great title. That is a great title.
All right, which one of you is narrating it? Who's doing the audiobook?
We both will. Okay, because you got to have a love triangle. You got to have a time traveler come back. Okay? You got to have a love interest who could be the time traveler.
Right.
Yeah.
And, hey, friggin' we don't know which way he swayed. Just not far from the tree.
Right.
The worm in the apple. That's
Hey.
what.
Oh!
There's your writing prompts for the night.
Dun, dun, dun.
Right. Grab it. Stop it.
Bad writers. Bad.
I just want to add the worm in the apple pie, but they did that in a movie with Eugene Levy.
Mm-hmm.
It was friggin' amazing, by the way.
They just wrapped up Schitt's Creek, by the way.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wait, aren't we all there right now?
I have a hat that says Shit Creek Survivor.
Yeah.
That's a great story for writing as
Good
well.
show. Yeah. What I like about that show is like they have like they do the joke and then this pause after the joke where there's someone just has a baffled look on their face or it's just like awkward and it just lingers for like 2 seconds and then it moves on with the sound effect and I think it's, like the joke is the lingering after the joke. So I don't know. It's really interesting if you watch the show.
Like they intentionally didn't record it with a studio audience.
No, yeah, there's no laugh track or anything.
Oh no, right. But it's one of those. There's a break for a laugh.
Yeah.
That never comes.
Yeah, I know.
It makes it completely awkward in the entire show.
If
Yeah.
I may, to Hollywood, go delete every goddamn laugh track you have in Hollywood now, please.
Yes.
I like laughing when I want to laugh, and I will actually get pulled out of a show when the laugh track is triggering in places where I'm like, nope, that wasn't funny. And I'm tired of watching this show now because they're telling me what I need to think.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you guys, do you ever like perform part of your work to try and get an idea of like how to describe it?
All the time.
Yeah.
I even have, not all the time, but occasionally I'll have props. And then I'll have that one prop or act out the scene or absolutely. Act like a big goofball. Absolutely.
Nice.
I'll interview my characters. Yeah, absolutely.
I will, first and foremost, and if anybody who's watched me write while I'm streaming, they'll see me close my eyes as I picture the scene and see if I can get it that way. But there have been certain times, especially with any sort of physical contortions, sword fights, etc., where I need to... It's like getting my little artist doll out and posing it to the right pose. I need to see how does a hand twist when you're doing this thing, or totally feel like I'm talking about porn right now, but I'm not. It's just a fight choreography.
You could be. You could be.
I have found writing an erotic scene is very similar to fight choreography when you're putting it on a page. You definitely have to keep track of where all the little things
Ow, he's
are.
on my hair.
It's true.
There we go. Can I get a
You
new
get
blanket?
embarrassed. You get embarrassed, and you're like looking around for someone over your shoulder, and you're all by yourself.
No. My neighbors are, matter of fact, like, can you get a little embarrassment and get back inside the house and put your pants on?
Hey, I didn't have to pay for my blinds. I got my neighbors to crowdfund that shit.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's things, yeah, anything to do. I know when I'm getting characters when I can hear their voice, and sometimes when I hear the dialogue happening, I can't hear it. I can just kind of hear, and I can get the rhythm.
Oh yeah.
And I'll borrow voices from actors, yeah, and I'll even have the type of music they like, whatever gets that picture more solid. Yep.
Yeah.
See, my mind is wired completely different, I think. Because I see it's like a movie in my head playing out. I see every twist, I see every turn, I hear every voice, I hear every word. And sometimes I'm walking in the grocery store and there's a scene playing out in my head while I'm picking up milk and bread and just walking.
They make medication for that now.
They make medication.
By the way, Tempe, it sounds like your brain is wired the way we put our brains to be when we're doing these things. So it's not so much different as we all get to that place in different ways.
Yeah.
I swear, like when I lost the sight, something just slipped in my mind completely. Because like I said, I'd never written before this. And then when it started, it was just like a movie in my head, and I just started writing it, and that's how I went with it. So
That's a beautiful thing. That's
Yeah.
really good.
Yeah, I do everything backwards anyway, so
Hey,
take the advice for what it's worth, but that's the way it works for me. So
Timpani, do me a favor. Just rub your mic for me real quick, please. Okay, making sure.
Yep.
Making
Okay.
sure you just maybe lift it up a half inch so it's more towards your mouth there. There you go.
how about that?
I agree. There's moments when it's just clear as a bell.
Yeah.
And you're just like trying to get it. And then there's moments I've had to really struggle sometimes with certain characters. And I just like, ah. And then I end up loving that character in the middle of the story because the ones you fight for. And I think that's just creativity. Sometimes it's just beautiful. And sometimes I can even hear the absolute score, especially when I'm dreaming. The whole thing is right there. And then you wake up like, as fast as you can before it disappears.
Yeah, I like to hint at a score in because books don't have scores, but
Yeah.
like I do like to hint at it when I describe certain like atmospheric things and like comparing the wind to like certain instruments or like the sea to thrumming, and I'll put in these words that suggest music to give it that bombastic epic feel.
And I think that's why most of mine are dialogue too. With my books, it's because I'm just hearing, I'm hearing the whole conversation in my head, and then I'm adding just, she moved to the table or they went upstairs or whatever.
Stage directions.
Yeah, pretty much. That's the way it works in my mind.
Mhm.
So yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So we've got about 7 or 8 minutes left in the first hour. So I'd like to talk about writing prompts again. Again, we've mentioned if anybody's looking for a writing prompt, you can find them online with the very easy search engine search. Excuse me. Or I've seen some people who say they'll just pull up a random writing prompt to get writing for 5 to 10 minutes before writing on their actual project. Me, I pull a writing prompt that relates to what I'm writing. In other words, my next part of the story. I pull the writing prompt out of my head, that one crazy sentence that makes me go, let me do this. So let's give opinions on writing prompts, as in, do they help you? Do they work? What's your advice on them? Aaron?
Goes back to Malcolm Gladwell's book, The Outliers, where he talks about the way you get better at doing things is by purposeful practice, the 10,000 hour rule. So what I tend to do is I use Reddit a lot, and they've got a subreddit called Writing Prompts. But I'll freaking just scan it, I'm subscribed to it, and if something piques my interest, I start writing it. And one of the ones that I've got out there is, Walt Disney's been uncryogenically frozen. Write a scene. There's another one where Elon Musk shows up with a bag of gold and a pizza at your door. I've got one where Bruce Wayne dies and the Joker is taken over. And I friggin' juggle through them because I want some action stuff. I want some pure comedy stuff. And I want a little bit of suspense to try to build up this, because you got to pique the interest real fast on those. Otherwise, it just kind of dies on the vine. The difference between 3 likes and 3,000 likes is significant on a site like that.
Michael?
Elizabeth, I love what you said about rhythm, because that has happened for me before, where I know what the sentence should, like, what the beats of the sentence are, and then filling that in and switching out words so that it fits the beats of the sentence.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the dun, dun, dun,
Well, it's like masturbation, rhythm and tension.
My God. Kids' books.
Sorry, I'll wait years.
Okay, I don't think they're here.
I think middle grade really would appreciate more eroticism in their books, to be honest. I'm just saying, middle school is middle school.
I'm going to pull this truck back on the road here for you, Michael, real quick. I once told, I had a really good composer working with me, classically trained, awesome guy. And I told him one time, I said, sometimes, when I'm really working hard, it's like I can hear music just turned down, like someone's left a radio on. And he laughs. He said, oh, it's just your imagination. Don't worry about it. So I think that's what's happening, is you can just picture the scene, like, and I love it. I love it. That's good. That's cool.
And you take your brush to it, and then you give it vividness. That's basically what it is. Listen to whatever like little things are sparking inside of you, and then try to or if you have something that's perfectly clear, your goal is to try to sell that image to yourself as your first reader. So
Tempe, any thoughts on this?
Again, with me, I do everything completely opposite. I just go with the flow. Just whatever pops in my head, I go with it.
I point out that is your writing prompt. I don't think you're doing opposite. I think you're doing it naturally and instinctually. Because when you lay down that first sentence, it's the thing that leads to the next sentence, and leads to the next sentence, and leads to the next, and you build on it. And the reason I point that out is not to criticize how you said it or whatever. It's to point out everybody works differently.
Yes.
And those writing prompts, they trigger in different ways for us. And some of us it flows, others have to do it outside of our work, others relate it directly to the work. Elizabeth, care to wrap this up for us?
I am so absorbed into watching Aaron eat that ice cream.
He has been eating since the show started.
Okay.
I'm like Robert Downey Jr. on the set of Avengers. I've got food squirreled all over this place.
I have not had ice cream in so long, Aaron.
I know, I miss ice cream. I'm a lot
Would you
like
me to tell you how good it is?
Aaron, let's wrap up the topic. We're coming up on 9 o'clock, please.
I'm a lot like Tempe in that, I kind of jump out of bed and I get to writing, but there are times I'm stuck, and there's things I do because I believe there's no such thing as the writer's block. If I'm really, really stuck, I'll brainstorm, and I'll even get off the keyboard and get to the pen on paper and write it out, sometimes sketch it out. Sometimes I have the luxury of being an animator, and just reread notes and get rolling. And if that scene is absolutely stuck and I can't get it done, I can't figure it out, just move on. Go to the next scene. I'll come back to it. And I've even got to the point where I'm writing dialogue. I'm so tired. I wish I were in bed. And la la la. And all of a sudden it just changes, and then I start rolling.
Yeah.
So
maybe emotion will activate that part of the mind.
If you're going to be a professional writer, then you write even when you're hungover, even when you're sick, and even when you're miserable. You just keep writing.
I found when I'm tired, it's 2 a.m. and I'm writing and I'm just kind of typing and don't know where I'm going, that it actually comes out better. When I look at it the next day, it's like, oh, well, that's pretty darn good.
Tempe for hire
Trent
now.
underscore
Yeah,
music
there you go.
lover just subscribed at tier 3.
If I may, Trent,
That's
thank
amazing.
you for that
Here's to your incredible
7
support.
months of subscribing.
Hi, everyone.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Woo!
Okay. Let's go and wrap up hour 1. There was something I wanted to say about that but I forget. So we'll move on from there. Does anybody need a quick break? And we all take a break one at a time. We have conversation the whole time. Elizabeth was already ready to run off. Elizabeth, if you'd like to escape first when somebody sees her coming back.
Okay.
I'm fine.
Oh, Michael, go ahead.
You scurry off.
Then make sure you mute when you walk away. I'll just mute him real quick.
Front to back, not back to front.
Okay, he did mute. He muted himself. He's good. And if anybody else needs to take a step away when Michael comes back, just kind of rotate through, and that way we keep the conversation going. Now, with the 9 o'clock hour, I want to start the second topic where we're going to talk about social media scales. Now, I'm going to run out on a limb here and say perhaps not everybody here is quite as skilled at utilizing social media as others, and perhaps some are more skilled at using social media than others. It is a delicate game, and I'd like to talk about that, even if it's half or more of us asking questions because we want information on that. But first, I'd like to go around and reintroduce all of us, as I do at the beginning of every second hour. So we'll go around the table like that. I'll let everybody know I'm the host, Travis Sivart, and author of the Harbinger series and the upcoming Silver and Smith series, as well as Portals. And what about you, Tempe?
I'm Tempe Wade. I'm the author of the Timely Revolution book series.
You want to hold one up?
Do what? And a bunch of other stuff. Oh, yeah, hang on. Sorry. Disorganized tonight. The Timely Revolution book series. That's book 1. Books 1 through 4 are out. 5 will be out soon. 6, 7, and 8 will be following. And so will some fantasy stuff and some romance stuff.
And don't forget, you can always find her at TempeWade.com. That's TempiewAde.com. Elizabeth?
Hi, it's Elizabeth Pashetsny with Pickleman Productions. You can catch me on twitch.tv, Pickle Lady. And I am a screenwriter, currently working on the next adventure of Pickleman, The Incredible Shrinking Dill. And you can check out any updates at picklemanproductions.com.
Very good. Aaron?
Hi, my name is Aaron Kennedy. I've been a technical writer for about 25 years. I've written the book Persona Non Grata, which is pulp. I am the owner of Valor Books and Clouder Consultants.
Do you have a book to hold up yet?
Hasn't come in yet.
We got to
Social distancing. Well, Amazon hasn't delivered it
They
yet.
still ship.
There it is.
Okay. And when Michael gets back, I'll have him reintroduce himself. There he is now.
Ooh,
Talk about
You
timing.
rang.
Elizabeth, do me a favor. While Michael is doing his reintroduction for the second hour, is Pickleman close by where he could do a quick cameo, poke his head in?
he is.
Why don't you do that? Michael, tell him a little about yourself, sir.
Hey everyone, my name is Michael Thompson. I am an author and an illustrator of many, many cool things, and one of them is World of the Orb, portal fantasy adventure about 2 best friends who get lost in an alternate world that the Museum of Natural History was desperately trying to keep secret.
And his orb makes a cameo, actually 2 times, in Silver and Smith.
I am so honored about that. I can't tell you.
Yay!
Yeah, it's on the shelf in the museum, and at the end of the book, when the characters open up their own curiosity shop in downtown London, it has been donated.
Man,
by
I
the
love
museum
that.
to their
I can't
shop.
wait to tell people about that.
Which means it'd always be fun if, he mentions later in his book how the museum donated it to a new curiosity shop and somebody bought it off the shelf.
Hey.
Dead Rising, yes, he did say World of the Orb. So feel free to check that out. The link is just above your previous comment.
That's right.
Okay, now as I said, the technical hour, the second hour, our topic tonight is social media scales. So this is scaling your social media and how to also balance it with your life. A couple of points I'd like to make sure we cover is, first of all, how many social media accounts should you try to juggle and how do you pick them? Also, how do you balance personal, humanizing posts versus here's an advertisement, direct up marketing versus business of here's my professional opinion as a business owner, aka writer, artist, filmmaker, whatever it is. And then the other thing I want to talk about is with social media, it's like any story arc. You can't have constant peaks. Otherwise, people deaden to that sensation you're giving them. You do need peaks and valleys. So this is the type of stuff I'd love to just discuss tonight. Now let me ask you this. Out of the 5 of us, who would say they're somewhere between really familiar with how to utilize social media for your craft to just a damn expert? Show of hands.
I'd say I'm probably in the middle.
Very good. Aaron?
Middle.
Middle?
Middle.
Michael?
Using social media for what? I'm sorry. In terms
To
of
sell books.
To sell books. No, I don't know how many sales I get from social media. I think I mainly just encounter people who have already like engaged with it.
Elizabeth?
You know.
I'm the same way. I'm not really, the only people who buy my stuff are producers. So, mostly just to gain notoriety and get my name out there and get meta tagging.
Okay. I once at a convention and this is where I felt like I was a complete amateur at social media. I went to how to utilize, I think it might have been specifically Twitter, but social media to do this sort of thing. And I walked into that room and sat in the audience with my notebook out, ready to write down all these great ideas and ways to utilize it and use hashtags, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And the 3 people in the front of the room introduced themselves. And one of them admitted they're brand new to Twitter, and that's why I'm thinking this is Twitter. Another one said, oh, they just asked me if I had nothing to do and asked me to come in here. I don't actually know anything about the topic at all. And
Man.
third person was somewhere in there too. So as this progressed, and this is 2014 or so, I realized I was the one that knew the most in the whole room about the topic. And I considered myself an amateur with a lot to learn. So since then, I have studied it a lot. Which, again, I put myself in the middle. Now let me ask you this. Since January 1st, so approximately the last 3 months and a week or so, how many business-related posts have you guys put on all your social media combined, would you say? Even if you want to break it down to how many a week. Aaron says 5. Michael?
A week?
Nope.
A month?
3 months and a week. I said
3
you could
months
break it down into how many you want put
Yeah.
away. Can you hear me? Is your sound okay?
I tried. Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know. My brain's smoking.
Okay, that's cool too.
I think I try to do at least once a week. Lately, I haven't been posting much at all because I'm just trying to focus on the production side of things while I have the time. So I try to do once a week. For my new schedule, I try to make Friday the social media day. In terms of social, I think it's good to have like an unspoken schedule for your audience so that they kind of subconsciously know when you're going to post and what to expect.
Elizabeth?
17 on Twitter, and I'm not as much on Facebook. And I think I did 4 on LinkedIn.
Okay, so 20 to 21 since the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
Tempe?
It depends on the platform. Typically I only
Across all platforms, how many have you done so far this year?
Honestly, I only put them out when a new book comes out, or if I put one on sale, or if there's something along those lines. I don't fill my feed with anything but just my books. So,
There's a lot of Henry Cavill here, though.
There's a lot of Henry Cavill there.
Okay.
You should go to my Pinterest site
So,
that I use for book
by
inspiration.
the way, for mine, I've done very, very little.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm going to go through and I'm going to point at what each one of you said. Tempe, I know you've done probably at least once a week. I see something on Instagram alone. Now I avoid Facebook like the plague. Put very little up there. On Twitter, I put stuff up there, but I don't read it a lot. I have too much to do to spend a lot of time trolling social media for entertainment or information. This is me. It's hard for me to dedicate that time unless if I'm trapped in the bathroom for a few minutes.
What? Sorry.
Aaron,
When you
I
got
don't
yours.
even know what social media you're on. Seriously, what are you on?
Shoot. Between LinkedIn, Reddit, which is semi there, Rally Point, because a lot of my stuff is military related and whatnot. So I've got a very tailored presence, as opposed to your Facebooks. I've got that for the new thing. Twitter's on there now, but that's recent. But something I'd like to point out. How many of you guys have freaking publicized Right Night over the last 2 months?
Right.
Oh, that I do time. Yeah.
Yeah,
actually have
there's at
Right
least
Night.
6 of
Yeah.
them now.
I have it more Right Night up than I do my own book. Actually, I was just looking over my Instagram since January, and I've only got 3 or 4 of like my book things, but I've got more of Right Night up than I do of my own book things.
But that goes back to kind of the point of I don't necessarily want to hear about the book all the time, but what's she doing? Whether it's here on Right Night, okay, hey, he's going to be back on there, and he's going to be talking about this stuff anyway. And we're not selling books here. That's not what we're doing. We're talking about writing,
Right.
but it goes back through the Right Night and goes back to the other pages, and it's all this interconnected web of stuff. What you got, Elizabeth?
I don't know if I'm getting off topic here, but it's interesting. I really created a different presence on Twitter, and Twitter is a cesspool of people's egos and hatred and, all the distraction. But I'm working on being in my writing community. And I mentioned it on the show with Travis, I've actually done business on Twitter through
Nice.
private messaging and direct messaging and actually pitched projects to producers. Now, unfortunately, so far, there's been a no. There's been one no, maybe 2 no's, but now they're following me and now they know my name and now I have potential to be hired to fix things and to do things. So getting out there and just being a presence. And I agree with Aaron too. I'm not always just pitching. I'm a screenwriter in my latest script. Sometimes I have like you, I have a cool photo or my cats are my editors and and things like that, but I want my name recognized and I want my name, and I'm slowly building followers and making those connections. So I think I've grown this year in social media as from being shy about it and inhibited to I'm going to learn this and I'm making it work for me.
Nice.
Well, on that point, to your point about freaking it kind of being a cesspool. I mean, we only see the best and the very worst of people when they got 128 characters.
It's true.
So we get either very nice or very nasty stuff, but the nice stuff's real short in comparison, at least what I saw on it. And then, I mean, that goes back to the point about the tailored communities and things like that, where you're kind of tailoring that. You're finding very niche portions that apply to your specific craft. I'm not on Twitter because it doesn't apply to anything I'm doing at the moment. But you are because, hey, that's where people are going to be recognizable, and then you can kind of see, what's trending and what's out there. How can I use this and leverage it?
And not to hog the conversation, but one more point to acknowledge what you just said, Aaron. Yes, and I'm very careful on what I say, and I always say positive. And I can be snarky as much as anyone, but I save it for the show.
Branding.
And on Twitter, I'm always positive, and I'm always pushing people and supporting people because people look, and I do the same thing. They look at what you post, and do I want to follow them? And
ask James Gunn.
Yeah. Politics has nothing to do with your business, man. Just stay out of it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Very true.
Absolutely. And I found that I use like different forms for different things. I use my Facebook writer page basically to update people, when the new stuff is coming out, because that's what they go there for. Twitter, I use it occasionally. I don't use it much, but Instagram, I kind of mix it up. I do have some of the book stuff on there, but it's mostly just fun stuff. I just try to keep fun stuff on there because, there's enough heaviness in this world. I like to add a little funniness to it.
Hey, I follow you on Instagram. You rock.
Yeah, thank you.
You have a good Instagram. I like Instagram. I think Instagram's one of my favorites. I also do YouTube, which is, I mean, I don't have a big audience there, but I did gain sales from that. I remember when the eclipse was happening, I did a little animation of the orb moving in front of the sun, and so I had a new fan in a new part of the world that ended up buying the book, and I was like, oh, I didn't expect. I was just doing that for a goof. But I think that's sort of the key with social media, is to try and be topical. Sometimes, at least for searchability, or just be searchable in general, whatever is a searchable term. And that's the power of hashtags on Instagram. Instagram has very powerful hashtags. And then Facebook, I think more people see Facebook than you realize, because I walk around and I see some people that I hadn't seen in a long time, and they're like, oh wow, you're doing so much for the books and stuff. But it's just people who like don't necessarily interact with it. So whatever you put out there, it's something. It exists. You're peppering the internet with your personality, and that's something important to keep in mind too. Personality.
If I can take the reins and take over for a moment and voice a lot of stuff I've learned. First of all, different people follow you for different reasons. Some follow you just to learn about what your art is. Tempe, they want to know about your book. They want to know about your table with the purveyor of unusual. Michael, it's just Chicken Boy they want, or it's just World of the Orb, or it's just Winslow. Elizabeth, it's your daunting and dazzling personality, or it's Pickle Man puppet only, or it's the movies that you're writing. Aaron, it's your tech. It's different things for different people.
And well, we all know it's my porn career, but
different personalities seek it. Aaron, I'm gonna have to ask. Let's keep away from that a little bit more.
Sorry.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I love the jokes, and I will definitely play. Just let's aim for one per hour, and then we're good. They follow you for different reasons. Some want to know you. Some only want to know your work. Some want to know what else you do. Some want to ride your coattails. It's all valid reasons to follow. Every social media is different for what's the word? Segment of population. What's the word?
Demographic.
Target audience.
All of it, yes. Exactly. Demographic, target audience, and what Michael said that I didn't hear because we all spoke at the same time. You said okay, good. I didn't even hear, but yes, those words. Twitter is pulling generally and you can Google this to get better, more precise numbers. It's pulling like 27 to 45. Facebook is actually like 40 to 65 now. It's no longer a younger audience. Snapchat, I don't even know how to advertise via Snapchat, so I have no clue because I went, oh, look, funny filters. I'm done with it. Instagram seems to be somewhere in the middle. YouTube, totally different type of interaction. Twitch is social media. You guys are using social media right now. I know for a fact, Michael, Aaron, Tempe, you've posted on social media at least 6 times in the past 6 weeks because each of you have been here for the episodes.
Yeah, that's true.
And this is something...
I don't really keep track of it too much, though.
Right, and we don't. By the way, Michael, I did want to comment on I do social media on Friday. Friday is a great day to do social media in relation to making people spend money. It's a payday. It's right before the weekend. Okay. They're looking for things to do. That is a great idea. And also, if you research, you'll find there is better times during the day to post than others, depending what social media you're using. Twitter, don't do what I do when you're going to bed at 1 in the morning, put something on Twitter. Nobody sees it. It is real time, though they've actually changed that algorithm a bit. But
it's good to keep in mind.
It is. And Facebook, whereas Facebook will put something that was posted 12 hours ago in your current feed, unless you have it specifically
Right.
set to show. So there are better times to post things. For example, if you're going to post on YouTube, 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern is the best time. Whereas Twitter, 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern is the best time. And also with Twitter, you can post the same thing multiple times because depending when you post it, different people see it. So all this goes into it, and all the things you guys mentioned, Henry Cavill, your books, the show, going to the store and putting up some stupid meme about COVID, whatever, all these are what keep people on your social media watching you or makes them go, ugh, and unfollow.
Right.
And you can aim as much as you want. You're always going to lose some. It's just going to happen. So don't sweat those. The point is, how do you get more people there and how do you keep them there? And that's what I want to talk about. So what I'm saying is I'm hearing some very specific things from each of you. Because what you're... Michael, when you say, I got one book sold, why wasn't it 1,000 or 100 or 10 or whatever? Could it have been more if it was more effectively done?
Right.
Or put on a different social media? Which is not to say what you did is wrong. Just there might be a better way.
Mm-hmm.
And real quick, John did ask, may I ask, as a business owner, I try to post daily, but I've noticed that as a publisher, I post less. Do we treat our passion for creating less than we would a business? I want to point at Aaron, and then I will open it up. Aaron says this is a business. I agree. I've put that in more than one book. I've put that on tons of shows. I think we've pretty much said that every episode of Right Night. This is your business, John. If you're not posting like this is a business, perhaps you should consider that. And hello to the new person that just jumped in and posted a link to a story, I guess. Welcome. Yeah, bye, hi. Okay.
Dead Rise redeemed a dad joke.
Let's just do this. We're just gonna do that real quick. So, any thoughts on all that I just spewed out?
Yeah, I mean, I've hit that thing. This is a business, and friggin' the social media stuff, that's branding. That's 100% pure, uncut branding. It's the image that we're putting out there for everybody else to see. And yeah, we're going to let them, like the Muppets, we're going to let them into our world. The Muppets are 100% real in a censored world.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we see. We're giving them a very censored view of us to promote our brand, whether it's the book brand, our personal brand, or whatnot. People like to engage with Michael because, well, frankly, he's outgoing. He's got the best elevator pitch we've got of all of us.
Thank you.
Whereas with Tempe, hey, friggin' Henry Cavill, that is a good-looking dude. Those that like Henry Cavill are gonna friggin' like your books because, like,
How many of us has put an elevator pitch with a picture of our cover on our social media?
I've done it on Facebook when I do ads. I'll put it on there.
When was the last time either of you did it?
The book came out.
I did a Facebook ad 2 weeks ago.
Well, what about just a regular post as opposed to an ad? And we could talk about ads. That's a good thing to bring up and talk about.
With the Facebook ads, that's mainly what I use Facebook for. I'll post some things on Facebook, historical stuff, because like you said, that's an older group of people that are more interested in that type of things. Like if Raynham Hall kicks out something about John Andre, I'll share the post or something like that. And just historical stuff. With my Instagram stuff, that's more fun. It's all ages on there. That's just where I go to have fun. I like to have a little fun over there. Twitter, like I said, Twitter I don't use much, but the Facebook ads I found, I opened up. I'd just been doing in the U.S. Last week I opened them up across the world, and my sales bumped up quite a bit by
Mm.
opening them up. So,
What percentage? I'm not looking for numbers. I'm not trying to, figure out your income. Just what percentage would you say that helped?
probably 40%.
And are you targeting a specific age also?
I'm doing 18 to 65, and I did specific geographic areas. Like I didn't do Turkey or Russia. I did, New Zealand. I did Australia. I did
English speaking world.
England. Right,
Nice.
exactly. And I noticed a big jump last
Hmm.
when I did that 2 weeks ago. So
And this was, did you say it was Facebook or Twitter?
Facebook ads and
Facebook ads.
Facebook, what you can
Okay.
do is boost a post. You can make a post with your book and then your spill, and then just boost it, and it's cheaper than buying the actual expensive Facebook ads where they want to spend a lot of money. And
Hmm.
you can determine how much you want to spend. You can spend $3 a day and they'll hit so many people with that. You can run it for a week, you can run it for a month. It's whatever your budget is.
Okay.
And if you've got your Facebook account, like the writer account, hooked to your Instagram account, they will toss the ads over on Instagram as well.
Nice. Okay.
So,
Interesting.
yes,
So do
Hmm.
the ads pay for themselves?
absolutely. They
Wow.
do for me. They do for me. And I will say, going back to Instagram, when you were talking about the business, posting constantly with the business, I find myself a little turned off by businesses that post on Instagram every day. That's why I try to sprinkle it in with some more, some of the fun stuff. And I find I don't lose followers that way as opposed to just doing book, 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 book.
Right.
Because people want to get to know, I posted pictures of my kids this week. It was a throwback. I was just going through some old photos. I usually don't post about them because they usually complain when I do. But they were from 2011, and there were like some fun shots of just my kids, and people were like, "Oh, they're adorable." So you just gotta add that human element into it as well.
And that is a fair point. That's something I want to, is one of the things I said in the opening is how much do you balance humanizing yourself, letting
Right.
people get to know
Yeah.
you, versus straight up marketing, posting buy my book, versus here's something I've seen Michael do it. Tempe, I want to say I've seen you do it. Elizabeth and Aaron, Elizabeth, you're just kind of getting into Instagram now. And I'd love to hear more about Twitter to educate us with that, or whatever else you use. LinkedIn, by the way, is becoming more of a thing people are using. And I have it, but I don't even consider it part of my social media package. Um, but there is a third type. If you take something like, oh, I went to Colonial Williamsburg, here's pictures, and it relates to my book, link in bio.
Hmm.
Yep.
Or Michael, I saw this great movie, and it reminds me of this scene from my book, link in bio. This is Instagram. I'm using Instagram speak when I say link in bio
Yeah.
because they don't let you
Yep.
put damn links on it. Killing me. We also have a question that I'd love to throw out, and then I'm going to step away to refill my drink and let you guys go at each other. Tracy asked, what type of social media posts have you noticed got the most interaction with your followers? So this kind of relates to what I just built there. And before you guys answer, here's what I'll say. If you're new to Write Night, please keep in mind post related links only. To jump in here without having said anything and throw a link up in chat, it's spam. If you're interacting all day and you're like, I have a story that relates to this, I'd love to share, please feel free to post a link. If you're a streamer that also does writing and you've been interacting with us for the past hour, please share your channel. If you show up out of the blue and you start spamming links multiple times, I'll give you a timeout and hopefully you'll do better next time. So, what type of social media posts have you noticed get the most interaction? And also talking about that balance between personal, business, and then the other kind of fun stuff, whether it's a meme or whether it's relating it to what you write. What do you guys think?
Who's going first?
Go for it.
The funny little stupid things get a lot of likes just because people like to see those during their day, and the pictures that I post, like when I have vacation pictures, just scenery, they get a lot of likes. I am actually, once things settle down a little bit, I'm going down to Colonial Williamsburg. We call it CW here, and I'm going to film like in front of some of the buildings that are in my book and just kind of toss out some information on them and post them up.
That's
Just
cool.
thought that would be kind of a cool little thing, especially with people being stuck inside because CW is still open here. The streets are still open. You can go outside the buildings and kind of take your camera and do a little spiel. And I think I'm going to do that once the pollen settles down a little bit and I can breathe again.
The post that I got the most interaction with, and we were talking about this character in the pre-show, but I did a cosplay as Ash from Evil Dead, and I put it side by side with a caricature that I got done by Never Been Designs, which were some artists that I met at MarsCon, and they did a caricature of me as Ash. And so when one of my friends got married, they had this cosplay engagement party, and so this would be the first time that I would ever cosplay, and so I chose Ash, and I built my own chainsaw hand and stuff. It was awesome. And so yeah, it's really cool. Groovy. It was great. So I put that up, and that got a lot of interaction because it has a big following. And going off of that, cosplay does really, really well on Instagram especially. And I have this little series going every time I do a convention where there's cosplay. I always take pictures of the cosplayers holding my orb from World of the Orb. I've got a prop orb, and I put up albums while I'm at the convention, and those always do really well because I ask the cosplayers for their handle, and if they have it, then I can tag them, and I can hashtag whatever their cosplay as. So it's like casting a wide net, and pulling in new followers, maybe.
Michael, if I may suggest, do 3 seconds of video with each of them after the picture, and let them get some movement in there, and then put together a YouTube collage, letting every single person, just like this will be on my Facebook, it'll also be on my YouTube. And that's another great way to pull people in and give motion, and ask Elizabeth for some camera tricks to help you out with that. She's got a lot of ideas and good suggestions. And
oh, great! I did one video once with Fushigi. I had this one guy, Fushigi the Orb. He was
is that magician. The rabbit from the '80s in the comic book?
No, it was
that's Usagi Yojimbo.
Oh yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's right over my head.
Go on.
He was his name was Yu the Magician. I think that was RavenCon. I took a few videos at RavenCon, and it was Yu the Magician, and then his friend was Eric Cartman for real. So I took video of both of them. So this one guy doing Eric Cartman's voice, just improvising with the orb. So it's really funny. So it's a great way. That's a great way to like build community, because you have people interacting with an artifact from the book, and it was just a fun thing, like spur of the moment thing, and it was neat what it turned into.
Aaron,
to your point, Travis, and back to him. One of the things we got to realize in this new social media world, we're not paying all the hosting costs anymore. Mm-hmm. We're gonna let YouTube pay for it. We're gonna let Instagram pay for that 3 seconds of video. It's not like we have to worry about the space or anything like that. They're out there, mm-hmm. and we may as well leverage them paying for our storage.
If I can interrupt real quick. Michael, I just mentioned the YouTube video where you could do a 3-minute video with 50 people. Take that same video and break it into multiple 45-second ones and post a different one on your Instagram and Facebook every other day. Mm-hmm. Aaron, go on. I just realized from what you were saying, that's fair point, and give him more exposure, and now it's a lot of work.
Well, I mean, I imagine Elizabeth runs into this as well, because she's dealing with video and animation and everything like that. What kind of hosting costs? Or not? I don't want numbers or anything like that, but is it significant or insignificant on your own side as compared to the social media side?
Hosting? What do you mean by hosting?
When you pay for websites that support that much bandwidth.
Oh, I utilize Vimeo and YouTube, and then I go Squaresoft or Squarespace, excuse me,
Right.
I really keep it minimum. I spare every expense to keep Pickleman Productions going. But what I have noticed, to bring it back, the equipment it takes to do everything that I do is very expensive, and it continuously needs upgrading and powering, and it's rough. It's rough. It's rough. It eats a lot of my budget, you know.
Oh, yeah.
But the biggest points or hits or responses I get from my postings are usually during Inktober, which is October, and I do ink sketches and drawings, and they take a bit of time, but they get a pretty large response. The films do, but it's always the obscure ones, the ones you're working hard, you just take everything to get this out. People love them, but it's the weird ones that they really love.
Yeah.
Cosplay, and like Michael, I always got Pickle going around meeting people, and so there you go. But I do weird drawings, and they're sketches, and people love them. And friends have been begging me for years to start doing stuff with them, and I keep saying, "Oh, they're not any good." And I think I'm gonna start doing stuff with them.
Yeah, you could totally do like a cool illustrated like anything, like even if it's like a poetry book that's illustrated, and or do like something. You have a great style. I feel like it would look really cool.
Yeah, it's just I don't know. It hasn't been on the priority, but it's now on the list.
This
So.
something I want to mention. One of the biggest things as a creator, not even just a writer, but a creator of any type, is how much time do you spend marketing, which includes social media, versus actually doing your damn craft, versus living a life, working a day job, eating dinner with somebody you know, whatever. And it's a hard balance. And what I have found is, without an assistant to actually do it on a schedule that we write down and go do it here, we go through phases.
Yeah.
If we're I think Freudian slip there. If we're hard on a project, we post less because we're busy. We've got to work. We've got to create, and also support ourselves in our day job, as well as, actually interact with the people in the house with us at some point. Catch cats falling off shelves behind us. That was the noise you heard. He does this about every 2 to 3 weeks. He falls off the damn shelf, and I try to catch him. I know. He wakes up so surprised on the floor.
At least you're not fighting him off. Like I'm a weary eye over my shoulder.
I have one cat that loves bleach, and today I found out Old Spice aftershave really does it for her.
We have so much in common.
Kind of like we were talking about the sweets earlier, Elizabeth. It doesn't smell the same it did 20, 30 years ago. It's just not the same anymore. But anyhow, how much time, or how do you balance how much you put up on social media versus working? And I've always gone with the flow, which is not the right answer, I think. I think having a schedule that is realistic, even in the hardest of times, is the best answer. And then you can ramp it up when there's a release. You can ramp it up when there's an event. You can ramp it up when there's a.
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
I absolutely agree with you. And the first thought that I had in my head was, okay, pick the 3 that apply to the project you're working on, because it goes back to. Okay.
What do you mean by the 3?
Okay, so there's
the 3 days,
hundreds
the 3 social medias, the 3 what?
3 social medias.
There you go.
Okay, because 85% of your social media impact's going to be off of 3. You can have 10, but you're going to have your number 1 performer, your number 2, and a third one that's kind of there.
True.
So pick the 3 that apply to the project that you're currently working on, or the last project, or the future project, and then just pick a day and go, oh, I'm going to friggin' hit Facebook on Monday, friggin' Instagram on Tuesday, Twitter on Thursday, and then just, okay, I'm going to have something released. It doesn't matter what it is.
To add on to what he's saying before somebody else jumps in or he continues, a lot does this on your Facebook pages. YouTube definitely does this. You can schedule posts.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think you can on Instagram. And Twitter you can, but it's through a second service that you got to sign up for. What I'd recommend is if you want to make regular Friday 7 p.m. posts on Facebook, first week of the month, take that much time to schedule all the posts for the next 4 weeks, 5 weeks, whatever that month has, to save yourself time, because it is easier to do 4 in a row in 20 minutes or 30 minutes than taking the 10 minutes each week. Aaron?
And I see where you're going with that, but you got to remember with social media, you got to be topical too, and things change so fast.
Yeah.
But to your point regarding scheduling, I know Squarespace, you can schedule your blogs and some of your posts through there, and there's a couple second party options that you can do that, and you just kind of monitor and go, oh, I've got 10 built, I'm going to pick this one for today.
That's very convenient if you can find one that does. By the way, for topical, Aaron, you're correct. Here's what I recommend is almost every month in the year has a holiday.
Oh, yeah.
So that's one built-in topical you have. Now, the other one might be, you know what, make one a month a payday comment. It feels topical, it feels current, but you could plan it 3 months ahead of time and it still works. It still feels topical.
The Monday prior to the 15th.
There we go.
Because payday comes on a Friday or it comes on the 15th. For if you're a government worker, you get them on one of the two normally,
right?
And it'll pop up. Or you got it immediately after the last payday, which is kind of nice.
Elizabeth?
Sorry, zoned out. Absolutely. Take advantage of when you can schedule things. When I send out query letters to producers, I don't just send them so they get in this huge pile that they receive by the end of the day. I send them out at about 8 o'clock my time, which on the West Coast is 5 or 6 o'clock their time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's earlier in the day.
Okay.
It's tricky. I haven't figured out the Twitter lingo yet. I haven't figured that out yet. There's a special way of posting things, but I think you're right. You got to figure out your angle and stick to it. And that's the secret to everything. And the hashtags are fabulous. And don't fall for the short-term snarkiness. You want people to invest time and money in you. Keep it real. Be true today.
And if I may interrupt real quick, and then
of course there's a bell because I'm talking.
I do it even when you're just staring into the distance. Anything to interrupt Elizabeth with what she's doing. John says, and this is important to all of us here, which is why it's worth interrupting. I have software I'll share with the group to schedule posts to social media. Remind me tomorrow. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Stealing.
Huh?
Stealing for survival tomorrow.
That's right.
Same place.
That's right. It's so I just want to say that out loud for all of us to remember, to remind one of us. Yeah. Okay, Elizabeth. Any other thoughts to add to that before we pass to Tempe? Then Michael.
No, I'm done.
I only called on you because you were staring into space. I knew you were doing something. Really get back in.
Just thank you, John. Thank you. And that's the big thing is we can help each other. And success breeds success. And then it starts growing and growing and growing. And that's kind of what started those hashtag communities. And let's just keep going.
And I know Aaron wants to speak, and I'll give it to him in a second. Here's something else I'll say. If we all struggled and we all worked to get where we are, we will appreciate and remember the others who were there with us for that journey, who supported us on that journey when they didn't get shit out of it. Besides us going, thanks. And we will look to support them and raise them up along with us. Aaron?
Just one quick thing, because I wanted to toss it out there before I forgot. Elizabeth mentioned the things that she had feedback on were not what she expected. People remember the weird, the odd stuff that's out there, and you're going to have a very niche community regarding that. Army of Darkness and the Evil Dead is a weird thing, but man, it is part of the culture. Your Rocky Horrors and stuff like that, and it's going to make the hashtags much easier to find too, which is kind of cool.
There's one reason when I talk about, oh, we're live on twitch.tv/Travis Tavern Talk if you're listening on podcast. But if you're on podcast and you're listening 5 to 10 years from now, and I relate whatever current event is going on, such as COVID 19 in our current world, because Army of Darkness was not an overnight success. Rocky Horror was not an overnight success. As Elizabeth and I were discussing last night, Stanley Kubrick had a lot of movies that were not an overnight success. They came later as people went, he's doing something weird, and I don't want to be normal. So I'm looking at this. So what I'm telling you guys is also whatever book, whatever project, whatever social media post, and we can point at the bad things like where James Gunn got put through the ringer for something he said in 2011. There are these things that people dig up, and you don't know what you put on social media 5 years ago or 10 years ago might suddenly relate to something happening today. And somebody finds it, retweets it, reposts it, shares it, and suddenly that thing where you got 3 to 13 likes, follows, shares, whatever it is on that media, gets 1,000 times that. You don't know. So, doing it, it's rolling the dice. You're just playing the lottery. And you're probably going to walk away with a losing ticket. But, lightning can strike later. I guess that's what I'm getting to here. Tempe, do you have some thoughts about this? When to post, how often to post, scheduling, any of the stuff we've talked about?
I touch base on social media every day.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just in the morning when I'm sitting down going through emails, I pop over and I touch base every day on some aspect. I may not post every day, but I'm looking at it. I'm seeing what's going on. I'm seeing if there's something that relates to it that I could post. But I have a little bit more time than most people because this is what I do all day anyway. So I just try to stay on top of things with that. And again, like I said, I use different platforms for different things. Facebook I use for ads. Instagram I use for fun. Twitter, not really sure what I use Twitter for, but I do use it once in a while.
I see you on there.
Yeah, and Pinterest is becoming an interesting platform as well, because I get the purveyor of the usual, the vampire hunting kits. The amount of hits that I get off of Pinterest are ridiculous.
Book covers are big there too.
Yes.
I mean, a lot of people say book covers.
I put mine on there. I've got a writer section, like a little whatever you call it for the writing. I've got a section for house. I've got a section for book launch ideas. I've got all sorts of stuff mixed in up there. But the Purveyor of the Usual has its own little thing, and I get hits daily off of that.
You know what my biggest Pinterest picture throughout all my Pinterest interest has been?
What's that?
A 1918 Santa Claus. Yeah.
Different.
So yeah, the point is, different people, different
Weird.
things, different hits, and you don't know what'll work. But as I've said before, and Michael, I want you to chime in. So if you mull over whatever you haven't been able to say so far, I'll once again reiterate what Aaron has said. Aaron and I have discussed it before. Choose however many social media accounts. Choose 3 to focus on. Research your social media. If you're like Elizabeth, LinkedIn might be handier for her than Michael because of the content. She is trying to connect with producers and directors and that sort of thing. Michael is trying to connect directly with an audience as opposed to a publisher or an agent or whatnot. So know your social media. Don't go posting to Facebook if you're trying to get 12-year-olds. It's just not the best place to go.
And if you want to see lots of hot guys, you can go to my Pinterest page because I have a lot on there for under the book stuff.
There we go. Also, Pinterest is not totally, but largely, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if somebody thinks I'm wrong or knows I'm wrong, Pinterest is more female-oriented. It's also...
No.
Lots of guys on Pinterest. Lots of guys on Pinterest.
Would you say
Oh,
more
yeah.
guys than women then?
I'd say about half and half, because there's a lot of home improvement stuff on there.
Mhm.
They go on and look up for patterns, wood crafting. Yeah, it's probably half and half.
Cool.
Everybody's cats are getting into the action tonight.
Lots of memes. Friggin' yeah, it's so bizarre because
71% of Pinterest users are female.
Yeah.
That is straight from the people that track these sort of things. That is 2020 stats.
I know. I have a lot of guys that pin the stuff that I do for.
And I understand that.
Yes.
But across the board, in the big thing, 40% of new signups are men, by the way. 60% of new signups are women. Men only account for 7% of total pins on Pinterest. And of those men, 40% of U.S. dads use Pinterest. So there's your home improvement stuff. So this is what I'm saying. Know your market. Research it. Don't listen to me. Don't listen to Tempe. Go research your platforms. Know your demographic and where they are.
That's right.
And you can guess your demographic, but sometimes it's worth it. When I'm doing podcasting, I pay for a certain level of platform to put those podcasts out. If I go and pay for the next one, which I will once it's basically paying for itself, it will tell me who, what age group, what gender, what country, what time zones, all this other information. You could already find this out on YouTube automatically, and know your demographic is what I'm telling you. Know what's being drawn and talk to them. That doesn't mean ignore the others, just realize who you're preaching to and who's listening. I see Elizabeth making a face. Do you have something before I ding Mike here?
No, I'm going through something and I saw a picture of myself.
Okay. Michael, any thoughts, anything we've said up to this point?
Yeah, I mean, I like what you said. It's important that, when you're choosing the social media, that you like the social media, that you like it enough to, be on it and have a certain purpose for that particular one. And, I think the reason that this topic wasn't as fresh in my head was because it used to be that I very much had like a marketing mode and a writing mode, and one came after the other. And I stayed in one until it was time to go into the other. Now I'm trying to unite, those two modes with a schedule. But I'm back in the writing mode, which I'm okay with because I want that to be like the primary focus for the bulk of the week, because production is really important. But when I was in the marketing mode for like World of the Orb, when that first came out, I was fresh out of college and I had taken some multimedia classes. And one of the things that I had learned in those classes was to have a multimedia experience. And the phrase that I use is to extend the story beyond the page in terms of writing. So what things can you share about your book that isn't solely found within the book? What can you create a clicking adventure for your readers and your audience, to give them something fun, like to reward them for following you in the way that they are. So they called that multimedia, or it's like multimedia. It's a multimedia experience.
That's a great idea, by the way. And
yeah,
that's what I was talking about
something
earlier with Tempe. If you go to Colonial Williamsburg,
that's
posting related pictures. Go on, Michael.
Yeah, I remember when I was putting up portraits of the characters from World of the Orb, and then asking them like, who would you like to see next? And then from that, I would put up the next thing. And then I was always thinking, because painting something takes a long time. I was thinking, how could I also use this? How could I also sell it like beyond just the social media? And I was like, okay, this could also make a good t-shirt. So just in case. So in that sense, that's also a form of multimedia, because you're branching out and you're creating multiple uses for the same creations.
Right.
Yeah, but it's you can have like sort of Facebook exclusive things, Twitter exclusive things, Instagram exclusive things. I like what you said, Aaron, about spreading it out, and that might be something I try using. Travis, what you said, the scheduled posts. I think that would be a great resource, especially when I'm trying to schedule.
Real quick, Tempe, something to keep in mind with your Twitter. If you're posting on Instagram via your phone, there's a little click that will automatically put it on Twitter also.
Yeah, some of that stuff I don't want to put on Twitter.
No, that's understandable. And you can default it so it's on. And same with Facebook, but you can also not have it defaulted, so you can choose what you're sending. And by the way, there is other websites that will automatically, when I post a picture to Instagram, it doesn't automatically post the picture to Twitter. It posts a link to the picture. Unless if I use this middleman software, a website that automatically takes it and turns it back into the picture on Twitter when it posts it there.
Okay.
Now, I'd like to do a quick flash topic because we only have 5 minutes left before the end of the show. And that flash topic is hashtags. We're going to do it by show of hands. Who has some advice, thoughts, or questions about hashtags? First hand gets it? Excellent. Michael, go.
This is I think you should create your own hashtag. Because it's a way to sort, like on Instagram, it's a way to sort your things.
To brand it?
And yeah, it's a way to brand. And if you click it, you can see not only what you post, but other people may be prompted to post stuff as well. Like I had a hashtag World of the Orb, and I didn't really investigate it too much. But then when I clicked through, I saw some people besides me talking about it, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. And then that gives you something to share, and thus swell back into the current of social media and
Who else
community.
has something? Hashtags.
Blanket it. I mean, put as many in there as you can fit, because the more hashtags you put in, the more people you're hitting, the more feeds you're hitting. There's a lot of writers hashtags, writers of Instagram, writers, books, Amazon, put them all in there because they're all hitting on a different feed for somebody different. So,
Aaron?
To your point, Tempe, friggin', when you say blanketed, are you talking, okay, hey, we hit a couple hashtags on this post, a couple different on this post? Because, I mean, we are character limited on there, so it's one of those,
not on Instagram.
What's too much?
Oh no, I put 20 to 30 hashtags on each one, and then when you run out there, you can go down in the comments and hashtag it as well. So you can hit it as much as you want. The only thing I don't like about Instagram is that you can't copy and paste those hashtags. So you can't have them somewhere where you could just copy and paste them back in.
Yeah.
You have
Put
to
them
do
in
them
your
individually
notes
every
on your
time.
phone.
Yeah, and it takes a little bit more time, but it's worth it.
They changed that because they wanted businesses to stop doing that.
Yeah.
They were trying to get control of that.
Elizabeth?
Hashtags, true. I like the hashtags, but I also use the @ symbol if I want certain organizations or people to really take notice of a punch I'm doing.
Tagging
Yeah,
people.
it's
And I have noticed, though, I don't know if other people have noticed this, but I know you said blanket, but I tend to have more success when I'm not blanketing, like when I'm kind of being a little more accurate with them, or when I'm posting to larger posts. I don't know how many people are going to post to one big deal.
2 minutes.
Well, I mean, I post them like in the relative field.
If I could jump to Aaron real quick so he
bunch
can
up.
get a voice
Yeah.
in on the topic.
Sorry. Go
Aaron,
ahead.
you got anything?
No, and this is one of those questions that I've got out there. It's kind of the reality versus theory thing, because I'm looking at it going, okay, if I see more than like 3 or 4 hashtags, I'm like, oh, it's an advertisement, I'm gone. And whereas, yeah, I want a wide audience, but okay, can I space it out over a couple 3 posts? Using the Colonial Williamsburg as an example. Oh, hey, there's this, and this relates to such and such, and then the next post down, I'm hitting 2 other ones.
Where's the
and
question?
hopefully
You said you have a question.
Well, no, I mean that's kind of the question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
As opposed to I have a question, because it's one of those it's differences of philosophy, and they're both saying they've got reasonable
We
responses.
got
off of
60
both.
seconds left. I'd like to have a little voice in this, and then we have outro music. Here's what I'm going to tell you about
Oh.
Create Your Own is good. It is a limited audience. Don't just create your own, mix and match it with other stuff that is common that people search for. A hashtag is a search character. As for blanketing, it depends on the social media. Twitter has a limit of characters, also has a limit of how many hashtags. Instagram also has a limited number of hashtags. It's like 30 or something, but it's there. And Facebook, because of the age group, people don't like hashtags like Aaron just said. A lot of people, they see more than one or two hashtags, they ignore your post. So just know your social media, know how it works, do the research. Guys, thank you for joining us. Elizabeth, Tempe, Michael, Aaron, thank you. Sorry you didn't get a chance to finish all the thoughts. Let's do some outros, and we'll catch you guys next time. Once the music starts. Any second. There it goes.
Thank you for joining author Travis I. Sivart and the other writers, content creators, and all-around amazing people for our discussion here on Write. Join us again soon, and until you do, make sure you create with passion, enjoy the journey, and remember, every night can be right enough.
Like jazz hands on that. Good night, everybody.